battle between the two of them this season.
Oh, it absolutely has been. It's been a fantastic duel between these two. There are a few other contenders there in the early part of the season. They fell away, and it's now 9 points between Franchitti and Montoya.
Well, let's take a look at the scenario in the championship. For Dario to win the title, if he finishes third or better, no matter what Montoya does, Dario is champion. For Juan to win it, he needs to finish sixth or better, plus the bonus point if Dario doesn't score anything. So it is tougher for Montoya than it is for Franchitti. This week, we've spoken to both contenders about how they're approaching this event.
If I'm going to say I'm going to try harder, that's meaning the other race I didn't try hard enough.
I'm very comfortable in the Ovals this year. I'm upset I haven't won one yet, and I think this would be a good place to get that first win.
It would be nice to win it before, it'd be nice to win it now, but you know, we're in a difficult position, but we're gonna give everything.
I think both Juan and myself deserve to win it, and only one of us is going to be disappointed, and I just hope it's not us.
Let's just take a look at their season in terms of statistics. Of course, Juan Montoya has the advantage in number of wins. Look at that, he's had 7 wins as opposed to Dario's 3. But when you look at positions 2nd through to 5th, that's why Franchitti is leading this series, because 9 times he's finished between 2nd and 5th, only twice for Montoya.
That's right, and consistency is so important in winning any kind of championship, and that's particularly true this weekend. Dario Franchitti has been very, very fast on just about every type of circuit.
On pole position this weekend, though, Jeremy, it's neither of them. It's Scott Pruitt, first ever pole for Toyota. A brilliant performance for the veteran. In fact, this is the last weekend of Champ Car racing for Scott Pruitt. Next year, he switches to the NASCAR Winston Cup. But he's going out on a high by taking pole position here this weekend.
We knew going into it that we had to get it as loose as we could get it. And I got 1 lap out of the car, and then I went pretty loose after that. So we didn't scrub any speed. The car ran good, great for Toyota, great for Pioneer, and being my last race here, I mean, in kart, couldn't go off any sweeter.
Tremendous performance from Pruitt and from Toyota, and big news this weekend is that Chip Ganassi will be switching to Toyota Power next year, and not with the secondary team, with his main team. He will be using Toyotas and not Hondas in the year 2000. So that's one of the big stories. There are others to talk about, but first of all, let's take a look at today's starting grid. Scott Pruitt then on the pole position. Alongside him is the man who was the star of the show at the Michigan 500 until the last corner. On the second row, the Juan Montoya, the first of the championship rivals. He's ahead of Franchitti on the grid. Vassar is alongside him.
On row 3, Brian Hurt, who struggled on the ovals a little bit this season, but right up at the front this weekend. Michael Andretti, sure to be fast this afternoon. On row 4, Patrick Carponche, the fastest of the Mercedes contingent. Alongside him, the championship leader, Dario Franchitti.
Christian Fittipaldi is 9th on the grid. He won at Road America this year. 10th, his best starting position this year for the man leaving after this race, Al Unser Jr. Next up, the winner of the Michigan 500 on a very similar track, Tony Kanaan, and Gilles Ferran, who suffered an accident in qualifying, but not a serious one.
Row 7, Adrian Fernandez, he didn't like his 99 car, he's using a 97 Reynard today, and Alex Barron back for Marlboro Team Penske. On row 8, Robbie Gordon and Cristiano D'Amata, 2 Toyota engines, Gordon in the Eagle and D'Amata in a Reynard.
On row 9, the 2 Pac West cars. Again, Mercedes Power confirmed for next year, so is Mauricio Guterman and Mark Blundell. They'll be together. Paul Tracy's further down than expected on row 10 of the grid, and Helio Castro Neves discovered last Friday that Hogan Racing is closing for next year.
Richie Hearn in the 11th row. He is only 7 tenths away from the pole sitter. Naoki Hattori survived an incident on Friday. Row 12, PJ Jones, the second Patrick Carr, and Dennis Pitolo.
And then we get towards the back. Raul Bozell appears again for All-American Racers in Dan Gurney's Eagle chassis. Michel Jourdain is towards the back as well this time. And on the last row on his own is Greg Moore. Now, Greg Moore had an accident yesterday on his pit scooter, would you believe it? He's broken a bone in his right hand. He's using a special cast and a specially adapted steering wheel, and Greg Moore, therefore, has to start from the back. He did not put in a qualifying time yesterday. Keep an eye out for the man who finished 2nd here last year. But the big eyes, the main vision here is on the championship battle between Franchitti and Montoya. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of this grand finale to the 1999 FedEx Championship season. Looking down over this 2-mile superspeedway with about 40-50 miles due east of downtown Los Angeles, Southern California, and its typical Californian weather this afternoon. Bright sunshine, really a glorious day. The stage is set then for this finale, the championship battle between Montoya and Dario Franchitti. But don't forget, there's a race to win here today, and there are a number of other drivers who might win $1 million. That's right, $1 million on offer for the race victory here today.
Last year that went to Jimmy Vasser, and this great finish here with Alex Zanardi just pipping Greg Moore, who had led into the final lap. There have been two races in kart history that have paid $1 million. Vasser has won both of them.
That's an amazing record, isn't it? And remember, he starts at the second row of the grid again today. He's got Juan Montoya alongside him, so again in great shape. Now then, the race is 250 laps long, so take your time, settle down into your seat, and don't get too excited too early in this race. We're looking at a race length of about 3 hours 20 minutes, so it could be a long one, but it could be exciting all the way through, I think. We've got the Hanford wing on the cars. It means a lot of slipstreaming. The banking 14 degrees. It's 2 mile superspeedway, as we said. Jeremy, just talk about the track a little bit.
Yeah, we saw how steep the banking was at either end. 14 degrees, 11 degrees on the front, curving straight away, and speeds of around about 240, or just up to 240 at each end of the track, so to speak, and cornering speeds somewhere in excess, perhaps, of 225 miles an hour. That's really in qualifying trim. I would expect in the race pace this afternoon, I would think they're going to be doing 223, 224, maybe something like that, at least in the early stages, and then we'll see what happens as the race builds toward a crescendo later on.
Big crowd here. You can see in the bottom part of the picture the huge grandstands that run along the front stretch. It's a D-shaped oval. That front stretch is the curve of the D. The back straight is the straight edge of the D. And the corners at either end of the track slightly different in nature. The drivers reckon it's easier to overtake through turns 3 and 4 perhaps than it is through turns 1 and 2. Looking quickly at the onboard cameras here, Cristiano De Mata, one of those with an onboard. Adrian Fernandez as well. Michael Andretti. He's led on both previous occasions the race has been held here at Fontana, but crashed out spectacularly last year. Here we are then, getting ready for the start of the final race of the season. Pace car is in the pit lane, and Scott Pruitt and Max Papis lead the field around, coming through turns 3 and 4 now, building up the speed gradually. Scott Pruitt, the veteran who was starting his final Champ Car race before going to NASCAR. A great day for him as he starts from Toyota's first ever pole, but how long can he lead as they take the green flag? Max Papis on the outside, Brian Herter on the inside, and diving through on the inside, Montoya down low, Vasser up high, and the two Ganassi cars immediately coming to the front as Max Papis has the advantage. Pruitt is going backwards from pole position, and now it's Papis and Michael Andretti dropping down on the inside there into second. Montoya down close to the inside as well, and it's all happening immediately on this opening lap.
Good grief. Montoya really taking a lot of risks there for the opening lap of the most crucial race of his career, but he is in there, well, third or fourth, or third, back up into fourth. I don't know what you call it, Ben, but a great racing. There goes Michael Andretti. Once again, he moves to the front straight away and into the lead on lap 2.
The Swift chassis with a Ford engine takes over the lead then from the Ford-engined car of Max Papis in second place, then the Honda power of Juan Montoya. It was Montoya at the line just in third place, then it's Vasser in fourth place, and Franchitti in fifth place. Good start from Dario Franchitti as well. Good opening lap from him, but remember, long way to go in this race. Slipstreaming is the key. A number of pit stops. We could see between 6 and 8 pit stops in this race. Lots of potential for problems in the pits. Speed limits to think about. All sorts of elements to this race for a long afternoon and a battle for the championship. But up front, look at Michael Andretti. He's actually pulling away from Max Papis in these early stages, and again he's leading the race here at Fontana as he has done the 2 previous years.
Yeah, remarkable effort there, Michael Andretti. He loves these tracks. He loves his motor racing period, and he's really getting on with the job this afternoon, straight to the front. Meanwhile, there is Greg Moore. He has moved up already into 17th place the last time around. As he flashes across the line this time, we'll see where he comes up on the timing and scoring, up 2 more positions to 15th.
15th place. He's driving with a broken hand. Look at Castro Neves just diving past Adrian Fernandez. Fernandez himself was racing with a cast on his hand for much of the year. Now much better, thankfully. But Fernandez in the battle. Oh, we've got a crash at turn number 3. Oh, it's a big accident. Richie Hearn has slammed the wall on the inside. We didn't see the start of that. And Richie Hearn, the young American racer, with the Budweiser-sponsored car, driving for John Della Penna's team, and he takes the steering wheel off. So movement in the cockpit, and it looks as though he's trying to get himself out of that car. Let's take another look and see if we can spot... Oh, he spun on his own. He lost the back end of the car. Round it went and slammed into the wall on the inside. Similar place to where Paul Tracy went off last year, but much faster for Richie Hearn because he was at full racing speed.
Yeah, and he hit that wall absolutely square on sideways there, and it does seem fairly amazing that there isn't a tyre wall to protect the cars when they hit that barrier. If you're going to come off that corner and hit the barrier in that location, the way that wall is pointed, you're going to hit it square on. I don't really understand why there wouldn't be more protection on that wall, but the safety team is down there already. Richie does seem to be moving around.
So the pace car's out. Now take a look at this. This was when they came up behind the pace car. The pace car was late coming out. Oh, look at that! Papis and Andretti got side by side. Papis just realised in time that they were obviously, the yellow had only just come out as the pace car came out of the pit. A late call, and it nearly caused disaster, but thankfully Andretti and Papis managed to avoid getting into trouble. There is Richie Hearn. That's great news. He's out of the car. He's okay. He's walking away from what was a very heavy impact.
And here's another view from the camera way up above turn 2. He just lost control of that car, and it spins down to the inside there, way across the grass. You really don't slow down much on the grass at all there. And watch this heavy, heavy side-on impact there, and the bits flying off the car as that, all those pieces flying off the car, of course, that helps dissipate the energy of that accident, which is exactly what the driver needs. And there's a lot of head protection as well around the helmet area. The seats now are much safer than they were a few years ago. The seats are form-fitted to the driver's shape, and that does help to spread the load of that accident across the whole of the body effectively to absorb, as I say, those tremendous G-forces.
Take a look at this.
Yes, on board with Richie. Listen, let's listen.
Yeah, let's just listen to this, Mo. Ooh. Now listen to the bang. Oh, we didn't even get the bang because the camera went. And Mark Blundell's in trouble. Mark Blundell, who was right at the back of the field, I noticed, under racing conditions a moment ago, and he slowed right down. Well, he's obviously in big trouble. Looks like the engine's gone completely there. No forward motion at all, and it's big problems early on for Mark Blundell after just 5 laps.
Well, a big crash there for Richie Hearn, and this a season that's had its moments, good, bad, and ugly.
Welcome back to live action. On board with Michael Andretti. He is our race leader. We're under the first caution of the day here at Fontana, and that was as a result of the accident to Richie Hearn. Now, Mark Blundell's restarted. That's interesting. He was given a tow by the safety car. And Jeremy, did he actually stop in the pit lane, or did he simply...
Just at the entrance to the pit lane he stopped, in actual fact. I had to get a tow start. Not quite sure why it would have just stopped on him. They'd completely died, obviously. They got it refired, and he is back on the track again. That's the good news. The bad news is, of course, he is 2 laps down.
Doesn't take long for that to go wrong, does it? 2 laps down. Let's take another look at what happened to Richie Hearn here. Look at the background, red car, on his own, really. He was behind Guterman, but wasn't right behind him, and lost the back end of the car, spun across the grass, dry grass, thankfully. That's one thing, I suppose, here in California, but it didn't slow him down very much. Look at the impact he had with the concrete wall. As you say, Jeremy, completely side-on impact there, but we've seen him walk away. He is okay, and that's good news, because he's getting married in November, so it's just as well that he's been able to walk away safely from that accident. Richie Hearn completing his season by getting married to his longtime girlfriend, and I should think he'll be glad to have got out of that one safely.
Yeah, he and Brenda, a great couple, those two, really good fun, and great to see that Richie is unhurt in that accident. They live out in Las Vegas, or Henderson, in fact, Nevada, one of the suburbs of Las Vegas, and here, though, is Juan Montoya. He is in 3rd place at the moment, and Dario Franchitti, his pretender for the championship, if you like, is 2 places farther back.
Yes, not much difference between them, though, is there? Montoya 3rd, Franchitti 5th. Look at Alonso Jr. up into 6th place. We mentioned at the start that this is his best ever qualifying position this year, of this season. He's had a dreadful year, as we know, but watch out for that Penske. There you can see it. Now they begin to pick up speed, and look how far back everybody else is, all tied up behind Mark Blundell, and this has given a huge jump to the lead group. Blundell cruising around and being passed now as it goes green. Nobody could pass him until they got the green, and Andretti leads across the line then. Papis and Montoya battling over 2nd position as they go into turn number 1. Behind them is Vassar and Franchitti, and then there's a big gap back because Blundell was slow away on that restart, and nobody could pass him until they got the green flag.
That's right, but I can't quite understand why Mark took up position there halfway up the field. That was rather odd. He'd rejoined at the back of the pack and sort of passed a whole bunch of cars and then held them all up, which was somewhat odd. Ooh, crikey.
A huge accident for Greg. We don't know yet.
It's one of the players'
cars. And we don't know yet whether that's Carpentier or Greg Moore, but a huge accident now.
I think it's Greg Moore, because I'm looking here and watching the cars come past. There is Patrick Carpentier just come past us here. He is behind Tony Kanaan. They're running 9th and 10th.
There is Carpentier, you're right, and it is Greg Moore, and that is horrific. The whole car has split apart. Remember, Greg Moore was racing this weekend with a broken hand. He broke a bone in his hand just yesterday morning, after an incident in the paddock where his pit lane scooter, he was running his scooter towards pit lane for the warning warm-up, and he was actually hit by a car moving into a car parking slot in the paddock area, and he put his hand down to protect his head, he said, and ended up cracking a bone in his hand. Now, he ran yesterday afternoon for some 3 laps to see whether the cast that they built would work okay, and everything seemed to be okay. He was happy with the way he felt about it. I know you saw him, Jeremy, didn't you, yesterday evening, and he seemed reasonably confident about using that cast.
That's right. He went out for just a handful of laps yesterday afternoon after there was a NASCAR truck race was on during the afternoon, and after that Greg went out for a few acclamatory laps, if you like, just to see how comfortable he would be. They had, as you say, modified the steering wheel, and he was pretty comfortable. He was going to carry on there and did start the race, but as we've seen, a big accident there. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage here at Fontana. We're under caution after an accident to Greg Moore, a very heavy accident indeed, coming out of turn number 2, and that was the same area that Richie Hearn had his accident a few minutes ago. And as we can see, the safety crews are working hard down there, but the car hit the wall extremely hard. Engine and gearbox broke away from the tub. Now, the car is designed to do that to a large extent, to absorb the energy. The car breaks in half. The survival cell around the driver is the key area, of course, and usually does an incredible job of protecting the driver. Michael Andretti leads the cars around on this pace car period, the caution period caused by Greg Moore's accident. There is the scene once again, looking down over the debris from Greg Moore's huge accident. He hit that concrete wall on the inside, lost control. Now, we haven't seen exactly what happened. We believe he lost control on his own. We don't believe another car was involved. Perhaps a similar accident to the one that we saw for Richie Hearn when he lost the back end of his car. Turbulence is a major factor in this kind of race, Jeremy. They're running the Hanford device again. Now, this is a rear wing device which allows for a lot of slipstreaming. It produces much more drag and less downforce, effectively, than the old rear wing, but that does cause quite a lot of turbulence, doesn't it, behind the car? So if you're following somebody, you lose a great deal of downforce.
Yes, you do, and particularly with the draft that you get on these cars, they really get a big slipstreaming effect, and when you're following another car, it sucks you right in there behind another car, and then when you get right close to behind another car, there is effectively no aerodynamic influence on the front wings of your car, so you tend to lose then the front end, and if you're coming out of a corner in that situation, if the front end is not really breaking any air, so to speak, the air is flowing around the car and not really getting onto those front wings, so the front end tends to go a bit loose, so to speak, and the car tends to slide, and then you start getting the car then breaks off into oversteer. So it initially starts to understeer, by which I mean the front end tends to wash out towards the wall, and then the rear end comes around from there, and you then get into a spin situation. And I think that is what happened to Greg Moore, and a heavy impact with the wall. Fingers crossed here.
So there is the overhead views once again. This is, we understand, a very serious incident. Michael Andretti continuing to lead the cars around, and of course we will keep you posted as soon as we have any news. We don't have any news as yet on Greg Moore's condition, although we believe it is a fairly serious situation down there on the exit of turn 2. The race so far, of course, had been very tightly fought up front. Montoya just moving up into second place before this accident had occurred. Max Papis running up front. We saw a number of cars moving up through the order, some dropping back as well. Poleman Scott Pruitt had dropped down to 8th position by the time this caution came out. In fact, Paul Tracy was one of the main gainers of places. He'd moved up from quite a long way down the field. 19th place. Tracy had moved up into 11th position. So good progress from him. And Helio Castroneves had also been on the climb, but interestingly both the championship rivals, Montoya and Franchitti, both were running in the top 5. That's where they are now. Montoya second, Franchitti in 5th, as they continue to follow the pace car around. But everybody aware of the situation, obviously, down there at turn 2, and a great deal of concern in the Forsyth pit area. Greg Moore's team keeping an eye on the monitors, trying to find out some information at this point.
And there is one of the ambulances here at the California Speedway making its way to the infield medical center. There is a very well equipped medical center here at the track, and there is also CART's own medical center as well that travels around to all the FedEx Championship Series races. It is absolutely fully equipped, and it is set to cope with any kind of emergency, whatever it may be. And the situation is that in the event of an accident, the driver will first be taken to the trauma center there. His situation will be stabilized, and if necessary then he'll be taken to a hospital.
15 laps have been completed in this race from Fontana. It's the season finale from Southern California, but everybody concerned at the moment for Greg Moore, who has crashed in the early stages of this race. There, parts of the car, the back end of the car, being taken away by crane. Moore has been taken to the medical center now, and as soon as we have any reports on his condition, we will, of course, keep you up to date. Andretti leads the field around then. Montoya, Papis, Vassar and Franchitti behind. I see that Mark Blundell has just come into the pit lane again, and Mark's having a dreadful afternoon so far. He didn't run quickly at all at the start of the race, then stopped on the entrance to the pit lane, and now he's just come back into the pits again. There he is, and in fact has just come out of the pits once more. Now, whether that was a speed penalty, it could have been from his earlier stop, I suppose.
Now, the speed penalty actually would be served under green, or he would actually have to go to the back of the pack, one of the two, depending on what situation it was. But he is now, I believe, 4 laps down, 3 laps down actually, so he's lost another lap since he came to wall. And look at that, that tells the tale there. You can see there, after that little bit of asphalt where the infield rose course comes out, it's really more a testing track than a racetrack. I'm not really quite sure why it's there, but it looks like maybe the car dug into the grass at that point, and it's a very dangerous situation there, and then hit the wall and continued cartwheeling on down the back of this racetrack and shedding parts along the way. We saw the engine and gearbox there completely torn away from the chassis. That's not necessarily bad news, Ben. As you said, they are really designed to fall apart in that situation.
Yes, and of course that was on the same place of the racetrack. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Greg Moore had a big crash in the same place. Is there something on the racetrack that may have caused it?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, for me, it was just purely a turbulence issue. I got a really good run coming off of turn 2, and I pulled down low, and there's about 3 or 4 guys, about 3 wide in front of me, and it just gets really unpredictable, and just lost the rear end slightly, and then that was it, all she wrote. You're on a knife edge out there, so it's I didn't know what happened to Greg, and I mean, it could be the same thing because it's pretty busy in the back.
You okay otherwise?
I'm okay. I slowed the car down quite a bit. I hit pretty square, but it's just a bad day for the Budweiser team.
All right, we look forward to seeing you back next year, and hopefully that Toyota is looking good. It'll look good in the year 2000.
Thank you. Yeah, I look good today. It's looking good right now, but hopefully next year will be even better.
Thanks, Richie.
All right, thank you.
So Richie Hearn back next year, although the Budweiser sponsorship will not be part of that team anymore. That deal has come to an end now. There you can see the monocoque of Greg Moore's car being brought back towards the paddock area. Michael Andretti is race leader. Just 17 laps have been completed here at the California Speedway. Greg Moore's serious accident at turn 2, and in fact it looks as though Moore has been taken away very quickly from that scene. Let's just take a look now at the field summary at the moment. Andretti, our race leader from Montoya, Papis in 3rd place, then Vassar, Franchitti, Unser Jr. up there in 6th, Pruitt, Herter, Canaan, and then Carpentier in 10th place with Paul Tracy and Gilles de Ferran into 12th.
Tracy moving up very well there from 19th. He was at the start, up into 11th already. Robbie Gordon there running well also in his Toyota engine car, just ahead of Cristiano D'Amata and Elio Castro-Neves. And Christian Fittipaldi, he's fallen back somewhat. He started 9th and is back now in 16th place. Jones, Fernandez, and then behind Fernandez, all of these guys have actually made a pit stop during this caution. Bozell, Jourdain, Vitolo, and Mauricio Guzman, also Alex Barron, have all been into the pits during this extended caution.
Let's just take a look at Little Al Unser Jr., who has moved up into 6th position. Last champ car race for Al Unser Jr. after a tremendous career, Jeremy. He moves next year back to a team he drove for, in fact, in champ car racing, Gallers Racing, but they are now involved in the IRL. But what a tremendous career Al Unser Jr. has had.
Yeah, absolutely, that 272 starts, only 7 poles. That's perhaps his weakness, or certainly his weakness is his qualifying. Look at that, 31 wins. That is second on the kart all-time list, behind only Michael Andretti. Of course, IndyCar wins overall. The top leader there is AJ Foyt with 67, followed by Mario Andretti with 51. But these guys are pretty, not far behind them at all. There's a lot more races perhaps in the 60s than there were in the 70s and 80s. And Michael Andretti there, he's won a championship already with Gallers Racing in 1991. That was the first of his kart series. And as you say, back to Rick Gallers' team for the 2000 season, and he will race in the IRL. He's certainly struggled the last couple of years in here, and whereas if qualifying is a weakness, a few years ago it really wasn't too much of a problem. Michael Andretti really himself also decided to concentrate more on race setups rather than qualifying setups for a while, just to make sure the car was consistent during the races, and really that's been a trademark of his close friend Al Unser Jr.'s whole career. Well, nowadays, if you don't concentrate also on qualifying, you start way back in a pack, and as competitive as this series now is, it just makes it that much more difficult to make up that ground and get up to the front.
That's right. So Al Unser Jr. moves on, and Scott Pruitt also moving on. He'll be going off to the Winston Cup, and this is his last champ car start. But look, he took his pole tally up to 4 as a result of pole position here yesterday, and that's the 2nd pole in a row here at Fontana. Last year he did it with Ford power when he was driving for the Patrick team. This time he's taken really a crucial pole, and it's one that will go in the history books, of course, because it's Toyota's first ever pole. It's their 4th season of their engine program in champ cars. It's been a tough season. They've had a lot of unreliability problems, but they have kept at it, and they have certainly upped the program. In the pits, by the way, there you're watching Patrick Carpentier. Carpentier, Moore's teammate, of course, reporting some sort of throttle problem, I gather, with that car. So he has brought it into the pits, and he was running in the top 12, remember, but now that drops him down the order. And we gather that there's just one more lap now till the green flag comes out again. Pace car brings them round. 1 lap to go then. Green flag will come out next time around, and it'll be to start lap number 23. Very early stages still in this 500-mile race, and there are reports of some fluid from the back of Michael Andretti's car. Now, presumably the reports are coming from Montoya and Papis and Vassar, who are stacked up behind Andretti, because presumably they're getting some fluid on their visors. Now, we don't know any more about that yet, and it may just be the cars running a little hot at these slow speeds. Not enough airflow through the radiators, of course. That can be fairly crucial.
Yeah, a very common phenomenon on these cars when they do trail around behind the pace car at these reduced speeds. You know, when they're running at 240 miles an hour, there's plenty of air flowing through those radiators on the side of these cars. But when they're only going around at 70 or 80 miles an hour, they just do not get that air into the radiators. There is not enough air flowing through those radiators to cool the engine significantly. So they will sometimes blow off a little bit of steam through the bleed-off valves there.
We're waiting for the green as they accelerate through turns 3 and 4. Michael Andretti really standing on it very quickly there to get away from Montoya. Now remember how well these two worked together at the Michigan 500. Across the line they go at the restart. Lap number 24, look at Montoya, what a tremendous slipstream he's picked up. Pure slipstream that was, just the hole in the air that Michael Andretti had created, used by Juan Montoya to slipstream past. Now I wonder if we'll see them work together again. We may well do. They worked so effectively together at Michigan in the early stages. They perhaps didn't work so well together in the latter stages and allowed Max Papis to get away a little bit. And early stages here, I think they will tend to team up a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure about working together. I think they just both want to lead as many laps as they can. Of course, you know, leading that one, if he can lead most laps, that is an extra championship point, and that could be crucial in the end of the day for Juan Montoya. That's why he really does want to get to the front. Michael Andretti, well, he always wants to be at the front.
Yes, he loves to lead, doesn't he? He loves to win from the front. The Swift chassis running well. A winner this year already, but Michael Andretti would love to take the final win of the 1999 season. There is Scott Pruitt, the pole sitter, dropped away very quickly in the first few laps, but he now holds on to 9th place and seems to be running relatively happily there. Tony Kanaan, the winner of Michigan, is right behind him in 10th. Then Gilles de Ferran in 11th. Cristiano de Mata is 12th, ahead of Helio Castroneves and PJ Jones. Now, Franchitti is running well. We're looking there at Ansa Junior, just being passed by Paul Tracy.
Absolutely, by Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy made a great restart. He passed 4 cars at the restart. He has now got past Al Unser Jr. There goes Franchitti out of our picture. Here now is Paul Tracy up into 6th position after starting 19th. Really a man on the move.
Yes, and he looked confident this morning, talking just before the warm-up. He was very confident, relaxed, didn't seem too bothered that he hadn't qualified that well. Yesterday he seemed a little bit more concerned. They basically put a bit too much wing on the car in qualifying. It had got more windy. He went out just after Gilles de Ferran had had his accident, and I think the crew got a bit nervous. They thought, well, we better put a bit more wing on. The wind conditions have changed. When he went out there, they discovered they put too much wing on, and it was just slow down the straights, and he did not qualify well. Today they've come up with a good race setup, obviously, in these early stages, with a fairly full tank of fuel on board, and Tracy picking them off one by one, and now he's going to be soon in a position to perhaps help his teammate, Dario Franchitti. But just remember that Tracy and this man, Michael Andretti, are at the moment seriously involved in their own battle for 3rd place in the championship.
And Michael Andretti really running a fast pace at the front of the field. He's running average speed laps of 230 miles an hour. I'm surprised that he is going so fast so early in this race. That really is a very hot pace that he is setting at the front of this field.
Yes, and he's doing it on his own. He's got no cars to help tow him around. He's in clean air, and yet he's still able to pull away from Montoya in 2nd position. Papis in 3rd place. Then it's Vassar in 4th. Yellow, we've got another caution, and it's at turn number 4. Something at turn 4 on this occasion, and it's Al Unser, I believe. It's one of the Penskes. It's Alex Barron. It's the other Penske. It's Alex Barron taking another start in the Penske here this weekend, but it is Barron who has crashed against the wall. He's wiped off the right-hand side of the car, and boy, we are seeing a number of accidents. We saw a relatively clean series of practice and qualifying sessions, only 2 accidents, and one of those was very minor, and now already in this race we have seen 3 heavy impacts. He's out of the car, that's good news. Alex Barron, the man who raced for Dan Gurney's team for a while. There, by the way, is Greg Moore being helicoptered away, and he will be taken to the Loma Linda University Medical Center. That is the nearby medical unit that they are using this weekend. Barron, meanwhile, is out of his car, and a great shame for the young American, who is a very impressive driver, but perhaps hasn't had the equipment to prove what he can do. He's a Formula Atlantic champion, moved up to Champ Cars with Dan Gurney's team. Let's take a look here and identify what happened. There he is on his own, and the back end came out. He corrected, and that classic thing then, it went up the banking towards the wall and smack with the rear wing.
And a good save there by Alex Barron. That's what a road racing driver tends to do by instinct. When the car goes sideways, he steers into that slide. He corrects that slide with some opposite lock. And the problem with that situation is then if the car then grips, the front end of the car then grips with opposite lock on, so you're effectively turning right on a left-hand corner. And if the front end then grips, it takes you straight up towards the wall. And that's what happened there to Alex Barron. The car snapped to the right, and then he had to correct it again to the left, and did a pretty good job of straightening it out, so he did not hit the wall with a head-on kind of an impact. He was able to get that car pretty much spun around, so he scrubbed off a good bit more speed. So pretty good save from a nasty looking situation for Alex Barron.
You're just looking briefly there at the spotters on top of the grandstand, just above our heads, actually, where our commentary box is. They're radioing through to their drivers to watch out, what to look for when they're clear of another car, that sort of thing. You saw Rick Mears up there. He works with Team Penske, former driver for the team, of course, former champion, great driver in his own right. Nowadays works in an advisory capacity for Team Penske, and saw his nephew almost win the Indy Lights Championship here today. Casey Mears came close to winning the title, but in fact the title went to the Spaniard Oriol Servia. So celebrations in Spain tonight for Oriol Servia, the new Indy Lights champion of 1999. But big story also that Johnny Kane took his first win in the Indy Lights Championship, and he drives for Team Green, Jeremy. So Team Green seems to be having quite a good weekend so far.
That's absolutely right. And on Thursday, Team Green also won the inaugural Craftsman Pit Crew Challenge, which is a pit stop contest. It runs over the whole season, and then the 4 leading contenders during the season got together on Thursday for effectively a shootout. They had to make 2 pit stops each, and Paul Tracy's number 26 crew, that's Tony Cotman and the boys there on that car, came out the victorious in that contest and pocketed a very nice $50,000. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, good work from Team Green to win that competition. They've also taken the win in the Indy Lights race, not the championship, but the actual race here today with former British Formula 3 champion Johnny Kane. And now we are going to see the first round of pit stops. Into the pits leads Michael Andretti, Montoya behind him, and remember, 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, they were warned yesterday by Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward, not to get too marginal on those speed limits, because they are going to penalise them tightly if they go over the 50-mile-an-hour limit. They will be given a drive-through penalty. And he said to the drivers, look, many of you are getting so close, it's very marginal, so tell your teams to set those speed limit buttons at below the 50-mile-an-hour mark. You can see there that Montoya's speed limit button seems to be a fraction faster than Michael Andretti's, but let's see whether that helps him get out ahead. Michael Andretti, top of your picture. Is he going to get out ahead of Montoya? No, Montoya's out first. Papis, I think, is no, Andretti and Frank Kitty. Is that Frank Kitty? I think it is, who's come out in second position as they get to the blend line. Now, I'm not sure if that's Frank Kitty or Tracy. We'll have to check that. I would imagine that it was Frank Kitty, but it may well have been Tracy if they got a really good stop. We'll check that as soon as we get a better view as they come back out onto the back section of the track. I think it's Tracy, actually. I think it's Paul Tracy who's moved up into second position. So that was really a remarkably quick stop for Team Green. Yes, it is. It's Paul Tracy who has moved up into second position there. And a bit of change with Montoya now taking over the lead of this race, and Michael Andretti back into third. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage from Southern California. We're under caution at the moment. 33 laps have been completed. Still a small matter of 217 to go. Still very much the early stages of this final round of the Fedex Championship Series. The pace car leading the field around at the moment, and we've seen that first round of pit stops and problems for Cristiano De Mata. He came into the pits, Jeremy, went back out, and now he's come back in and jumped out the car.
Yeah, he was dead stick, as they say, down the pit lane, that time just coasting down pit lane. Clearly a terminal problem there, and the end of Cristiano de Mata's rookie season for Arciero Wells Racing. That's a disappointing end for him. He's had some very, very good runs this season, and of course he and his teammate Scott Pruitt have really turned up the wick on these Toyota engines these last few races. But having said that, after starting from the pole, Scott Pruitt slipped back to, he was actually running in 10th place before this latest caution, and after he had a bad pit stop, he's way back now in 19th.
So problems there indeed for Pruitt, and let's just take a look at who gained and who lost out in that round of pit stops. Well, the main man who gained positions there, I suppose, was Juan Montoya. He only had to gain one, but he's gained it. He's now in the lead of this.
Well, no, he's not in the lead of this.
Well, no, actually he's not, because we've got Jourdain and Vitola there, haven't we?
That's right. Michel Jourdain Jr. and Dennis Vitola had made a stop under the previous caution. Really not much point in them coming back in again. They'd only done 3 or 4 laps of green flag racing, so they've got pretty much a full tank of methanol. No point in coming in, so they are at the front of the pack. But the head of the real race, I think you have to say, is certainly Juan Montoya. And then Paul Tracy, who has charged up through his pack. Another great pit stop by those guys, and there he is, right up towards the front.
What a confident man Tracy is at the end of this season compared to where he was at the end of last season. Do you remember how he threw this race away? A potential victory here last year on a restart. Well, now we're getting another restart underway. The green flag awaits them, and Montoya begins to pick up the pace. Can't overtake until the green comes out. Now the green's out, and he's been completely outfoxed there by Paul Tracy. Tracy got the timing perfect and takes the lead as they go across the line, before the line in fact. Montoya picks up the slipstream though and comes back at him as they go into turn 1 and 2, and Michael Andretti's in behind those two of them and right in the battle as well. Look at the cars moving, working their way out towards the wall, and now Michael Andretti's got the chance to pick up the slipstream, has he? Not quite. To pass Montoya into turn 3.
No, not quite close. Look at that car there moving around a little bit there as he turned into the corner, and Montoya's car there slid a little wide going into the corner. He has to get out of the throttle, and that enables Michael Andretti to go past. That was interesting.
Yes, it was interesting. Jourdain leads, Michel Jourdain Jr. leads at the moment, but I can't think for much longer because Paul Tracy has caught up to the back virtually of the Peyton Coyne car. Meanwhile, look at onboard Michael Andretti. You can see they are working hard. Remember, the tyres relatively cold. They changed onto new tyres just before this restart. No tyre warmers, and look at Andretti so fast there into turn 3, and Montoya definitely seems to be struggling for speed, for grip going into turn 3. Tracy has taken the lead now from Jourdain. Jourdain now coming under attack from Michael Andretti, and meanwhile Max Papis is going past Juan Montoya.
And Christian Fittipaldi also moving up into the picture as well. He now was dicing with Dario Franchitti as they went into turn 1. That is a battle for 6th and 7th. But look here, coming down into turn 4, that's Tracy in the lead. Michael Andretti to the inside of Michel Jourdain Jr.
So now Michael Andretti retakes that lead where he was by quite a decent margin before the last caution period and the first round of pit stops. Remember, he had pulled away quite a good advantage before that point. Now he's got himself in front again. Let's see if he can do it once more. There goes Michael past Paul Tracy and into the lead of this race. And again, he looks so quick on the early stint. Whether he can keep that up throughout this race is another matter, but it's now Andretti leading. Tracy second, Papis into third place. Jourdain is back into 4th position. Then it's Montoya and Franchitti. The two of them pretty much together on the racetrack now.
Absolutely right. Great stuff here, but of course very early stages in the race. 250 laps. We're just across the line. There goes Michael Andretti. That is 39 laps in the book, so a long way to go.
Yeah, it's about patience. It's about trying to protect the car, look after the car until the final 100 miles, the final 50 laps of this race. That's what Jimmy Vasser reckons, and he's had an extremely good record at these 500-mile races, winning here last year, winning the $1 million prize. And remember, once again this year, $1 million on offer to the winner of this race. The champion will also get $1 million for winning the title, but just one race here at Fontana worth $1 million to the race winner. Papis got to be a good bet for that after his performance at Michigan earlier this year, and he's chasing after Paul Tracy. There they are, Tracy in the green and white car, Max Papis in the blue and white Miller Lite machine in third place. Then look in the background, you can see Juan Montoya next up, and then Dario Franchitti battling with Michel Jourdain Jr.
And once again, Michael Andretti disappearing at the front of this field. He is so much faster than everybody else in these early stages. Once again, across the line there, 32.0 seconds. That is just about 229 miles an hour. And again, he pulls away a half a second a lap over Paul Tracy. You can see there, look at those times at the line. 227.6 miles an hour for Michael Andretti, my maths is a bit out, and 224 for Paul Tracy, 3 miles an hour faster.
Amazing performance. Look at this, Helio Castroneves coming on Brian Herter, and Castroneves in his last outing for Hogan Racing. Not only that, it's the last outing for the team. Last Friday, it was announced that they would be shutting down the shop from Monday, in fact. So just the day after this race, the whole thing will be shut down. Mechanics trying to find new jobs elsewhere, and Helio Castroneves looking for a drive for the year 2000.
Yeah, and that is a shame. I'm sure it'll be a short-lived situation. There's quite a few very, very good drivers looking for jobs, of course, which is a shame to see. But I'm sure Helio Castroneves will not take too long to find one. And he really is running very well this afternoon in that Lola chassis.
Yes, he was one of the few to take the battle to Montoya in the early part of the season. Meanwhile, down in the pits, Dr. Steve Olvey. Let's hear from him.
What can you tell us, Doctor, about Greg?
Greg has severe head and internal injuries. He's being sent to Loma Linda Hospital for further resuscitative efforts. Dr. Jeff Grange, who's the chief emergency doctor here in this area, is with him in the helicopter and is going to report back to me soon.
This is a life-threatening situation?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Well, that is the latest update, and of course, all our thoughts are with Greg Moore at this moment. And let's just hope that there is good news as we go through this race. We will keep you up to date with any news that we get. But obviously a very serious situation for the Canadian driver. Up front in this race, Michael Andretti, as you say, once again opening up that advantage, 4.4 seconds. His lead now over Paul Tracy. Max Papis close in behind Tracy, still in third place. And then Montoya and Franchitti separated by just 0.4 of a second.
Awfully hard to keep up our concentration, I must admit, in this situation here with Greg Moore, a very good friend of all of ours, of course. The race does go on, however, so we will be doing our best to bring it to you as well. As you see there, that is Mauricio Gugelmin, who's running in 7th place, and Michael Andretti still pulling away very rapidly at the front of the field. The gap now out to 5 seconds.
Behind Gugelmin, Jimmy Vasser. Now that's interesting. I mentioned earlier on that Vasser takes things steady in these 500 milers. He's happy to run in 8th. There's Gugelmin running in 7th. They did firm up that deal and announce it officially that Gugelmin will be with PacWest again for the year 2000. Confirmation also that they will be running the Mercedes engine, and that's good news. The Mercedes engine program has suffered a little bit this year. They haven't had the most competitive motor, and Forsyth Racing are switching from Mercedes to Ford for next year. So very important for Mercedes to have a top team, and that's confirmation that they will continue with PacWest in the year 2000. Good news for all concerned. Andretti's lead, as you can still see, continuing to build over Paul Tracy. It's now up to 6.1 seconds, and it's a remarkable margin that Michael Andretti seems to have over everybody else at this point. Using Ford Cosworth XD power, it's the last outing for this Cosworth XD engine. It's been on the scene for some 4 years, and it's been developed to its ultimate peak this year. A brilliant performance, but Ford were very proudly showing off their new engine earlier this weekend.
Yeah, Bruce Wood, the designer of the XF and in fact the XD, was here on hand on Friday and very proudly, as you say, unveiling the new engine for next year. It is 55 pounds lighter than the current XD. A real state-of-the-art power plant there, an 18% reduction in weight. That is absolutely amazing. And the whole center of gravity of the engine down 3/4 of 1 inch. 3/4 of an inch might not sound like a heck of a lot, but in terms of the weight of an engine and the balance of a racing car, that is very, very significant indeed, and Ford has huge high hopes for that engine.
Pole sitter Scott Pruitt coming into the pits and reports the engine is running extremely roughly, and that looks as though it could be over for both the Arciero Wells cars, and that would be a great shame. We've seen Cristiano De Mata go out of this race already, and now there goes the Pioneer machine of Scott Pruitt in his final outing in Champ Cars. A great day yesterday, but sadly it doesn't look as though that success is going to be backed up with a good strong race finish here today. Coasts into his pit box, he takes the steering wheel off. That's always the signal that it's all over. Pruitt has said, that's it, no way boys, we can't continue with this, and unfortunately his Champ Car career ends on lap number 50 of the last race here in Fontana. Well, a word of commiseration with the crew members. They've worked together this year, and they've done a great job. They got that pole position yesterday. That was really the highlight of the season, no doubt about that. He ran extremely well at Surfers Paradise last time out as well. But for now, it's the Champ Car season and Champ Car career over for Pruitt. He can look forward to a new career, perhaps, in Winston Cup racing. On board with Michael Andretti now as he continues to run away up front in this race. 8.4 seconds his lead over Paul Tracy, and I guess what he's trying to do is to go as quickly as possible, hope for no caution periods, try and put a lap on everybody. Well, I'll tell you what, at this rate, if he carries on like this, he might actually manage to do that. Down in the pits, meanwhile, Scott Pruitt has already met up with our man down there in the pit lane, and let's see if we get a chance to hear from him. Oh, are you hoping? Let's hear from him. There he is.
I know you really wanted to go out with the win. What happened? We're not sure. Something in the engine wasn't working right. We picked up a miss, and it got pretty bad. And finally just came in, and it shut itself off. So I don't know exactly what happened, but thanks to the fans, all the support I've had in kart for so many years, just isn't the way I want to go out. We'll miss seeing you on the circuit. Thank you. Thank you.
So Pruitt's career comes to an end. Remember Alonso Jr. today in his last race, and CART announced yesterday that they would take the racing boots of Scott Pruitt and Alonso Jr. after the end of this race, take them away, and they're going to have them bronzed and put on a wooden plaque and presented back to them probably in the early part of next year. So that's a nice memento for both drivers. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage from the Fontana Speedway, the California Speedway here outside Los Angeles. Michael Andretti is dominating this event so far, an advantage of 7.9 seconds over Paul Tracy, and you can see Michael involved in other traffic out there now. Max Papis holding on to a strong third, Montoya and Franchitti behind. Andretti's pace continues to be blistering here, 32.3 his last lap around, maintaining a good advantage over Paul Tracy with Max Papis in that third position. Montoya, Franchitti still running together, then Christian Fittipaldi, Helio Castroneves, Maurizio Guterman in 8th place ahead of Jimmy Vasser, Alonso Jr., Adrian Fernandez and Michel Jourdain Jr. Just take a quick look at the race recap. Andretti our current leader, but we've had 4 of the leaders so far, 4 different changes of lead, 3 caution periods over some 25 laps, and already we've seen 6 cars out of this race, and we've still got 192 laps to go, so a bit of attrition in this race already. Scott Pruitt, Cristiano De Massa, Alex Barron, Patrick Carpentier, Greg Moore and Richie Hearn all out of this race in relatively early stages. Now, I'm glad to say we've been joined in the commentary box by Roberto Moreno. Roberto, great to have you with us once again. Sad obviously that you're not out there racing, but just watching the battle at the moment there between Christian Fittipaldi and Helio Castroneves. We've been talking a little bit in this broadcast already about the tow that this Hanford wing produces. From a driver's point of view, can you just tell us what it feels like in this situation?
It's just amazing when you get near a car, and in a place like this, everybody goes round and round, and it creates a slipstream so big that even a car a long way in front of you sucks you and makes you better speed, and you have to have an extra gear set. So when this happens, you can put it into the next gear, and it will not overrev the engine. 2 drivers are amazing me in this at this point in this race. One is Michael, the way his car is handling, and also Castroneves, the way he's flying through the traffic and coming up to the top. So I think those 2 guys have a fantastic car in their hands, and it's just so good to have a car like this in a race as fast as this.
Looks like there's some sort of problem though for Brian Herter. We're hearing it's some sort of fuel injection problem on that car, running the Ford Cosworth engine there, and he has lost a lot of pace in the last couple of laps, dropping down the order. He's now down in 18th position. Well, he was last time across the line, and it's not proving to be a good day for Brian.
No, that's right. The last sort of 8 or 10 laps he was slipping back fairly steadily, and now really not up to race speeds at all, and he's already fallen 1 lap down, and will certainly go down more than that, and I think it looks like Brian Herter's day will shortly be over. But this man, Michael Andretti, comes up now to put a lap on P.J. Jones. P.J. Jones is running in 15th place, and he is just about to go 1 lap down. There's Mark Blundell. He's making another pit stop, and across the line there one more time goes Dario Franchitti. Franchitti in sixth place now, having just lost the position to Castro Neves.
Yes, as Roberto mentioned, Castro Neves is on a real charge here in the Lola chassis with the Mercedes power, and Castro Neves is absolutely flying here this afternoon. He hasn't had a particularly good run of races in the last few, but today they've got a car that's working well in traffic, as you pointed out there, Roberto. And the interesting thing is his car's working well in traffic. Well, it looks like Michael's car is working brilliantly in clean air.
Indeed, but Michael can also fight and get back to the front very quickly. So they both have a fantastic car in their hand. And I looked carefully before, and Castro Neves was able to come down. He was in the middle of the corner and come from the top behind another car, which is really amazing, and come all the way down to the bottom, crossing a slipstream. This situation, only when you have an extremely good handling car, you can achieve it.
Well, it looks as though a number of drivers are pretty happy with their cars at the moment. There's Montoya. Now, he's running in 4th position, remember, battling for the championship here today. His main rival, Dario Franchitti, runs in 6th place. So not a great deal of difference between the two of them. They run the same equipment, both in the Reynard chassis, with Honda power and Firestone tyres. The difference is in the teams. Of course, Juan Montoya run by Team Ganassi with the veteran race engineer Mo Nunn, and Dario Franchitti with Team Green. They took the title back in 1995 with Jacques Villeneuve, but perhaps it's the Ganassi team with the more recent experience of winning a title that have the slight edge in those terms.
Well, you've got to keep in mind that this race only matters the last stint after the last pit stop, and we're still a long way from it. So the only thing we can see here is there's a couple of cars, Michael and Castro Neves, handling extremely well. But this, at this point, it's only good relation to what's going to happen towards the end of the race, which is what it matters here.
Yeah, that's right. And as you say, in some ways, all we're getting is an idea of who has a good setup. But look at this. I mean, Castro Neves has just stormed his way up, and now he's on the tail of Juan Montoya. This is going to be the battle for 4th place once Castro Neves gets a little bit closer. Now, presumably at this point, Roberto, he's getting a big slipstream effect.
A great big one right now. And if he can carry that momentum into the corner, and you see he can go in behind the car in front and stay with the same speed. So when he comes out, he gets sucked by that car, and he'll probably just drive straight by.
These two have battled before in the early races of this championship, particularly at the Nazareth race earlier on this season on the oval there, and now they're involved in the battle for 4th position. Not quite able to do it yet, though.
Yeah, but it's amazing how close you can get to the car in front and go into the corner with it. This is amazing.
So Castro Neves continues the battle. Behind in the background, you just saw a quick glimpse of Dario Franchitti. Franchitti running in a lonely 6th, but I think he'll be quite happy about that at the moment. His teammate Paul Tracy running in 2nd place. And remember that if Franchitti finishes up in the top 3, then he's got it all wrapped up, no matter what Montoya does. So he's just keeping an eye on Montoya, keeping in pretty close company with him.
That's right, he is. And there's a couple of slower cars there. There's Mark Blundell on the outside and Naoki Hattori keeping out of the way on the inside there. And there goes Juan Montoya, and also Castro Neves past Mark Blundell. And this is again the battle for 4th place on this track. We're still not even close to halfway through this race. A heck of a long way to go. Just 69 laps in the books now, and plenty of racing to go. As Roberto very rightly says, it's the last 100 miles that really counts.
It is, but you've got to get there first, haven't you? You've got to survive. There, Castro Neves running a little wider, and now he's got some other traffic, which might be able to help him if he can just use that traffic to pick up a secondary tow, getting past Robbie Gordon there quite cleanly, no problems at all.
Well, what I can see it clear now, and once he got to the top 5, he's being very, very cautious, and which I think is quite smart of him to do at this point.
Yes, early stages, as you say, so don't take too many risks at this point in the race. Let me tell you that Andretti's lead, which was up to about 8 seconds at one point, is now slightly less. There is Helio's gone past Montoya now, so he's made that move at last. Well, not at last, but he's made the move and he's gone through, and now not far behind Max Papis, so just continuing on his way. That, in fact, is one of the Walker cars. That is
Gilles de Ferran, in fact, who also is a lap down. He's fallen way off the pace, relatively speaking, is 14th place. But here, the race leader, Michael Andretti, lap 71 into the pit lane, and right behind him on the road also is Paul Tracy into the pits.
So the second round of pit stops taking place, and and also in is Dario Franchitti, Robbie Gordon in behind them as well. So this is a crucial stop once again. Michael Andretti pulls into the Newman Haas pit. The team green cars have to go all the way down. Oh, and Andretti went too far. He went too far. He had to be pushed back there. He ran over that front hose. Remember, the concrete surface there, very slippery when they have to hit the brakes coming in onto their marks, and he just overdid it a little bit.
He ran over the front hose there. That is not a penalty. It's as long as you don't... Oh,
there's a problem, serious problem. Look.
What a shame for Michael Andretti. Yet more disappointment, it seems, in store there. There goes one of the cool cars. The other one is still in the pits. A long stop for the second cool car. There it goes now as well. But clearly a serious problem with the engine coming off Michael Andretti's car. How many times have we seen this in 500-mile races in particular? Michael Andretti fights his way to the front, and then cruelly, it seems, some kind of mechanical problem. Yet more frustration for Michael Andretti.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It means that Max Papis is now in front. Montoya is in the pits and gets away safely. So Montoya's made his stop. Franchitti's made his stop. There is Dario Franchitti, and everybody else piling into the pit lane at the moment as well. There is Franchitti. Do you see that little bit of a wobble on the car? What's going on here for Franchitti? Perhaps one of those wheels hasn't gone on properly. He's wiggling the car around, or is the car doing that to him?
It's going very slowly indeed. He's not up to racing speeds at all. There is no caution on the track, and Dario Franchitti has a problem and is coming back into the pit lane.
This is crucial stuff indeed. Dario Franchitti, the championship challenger. Look at how the car's sitting. It looks to be sitting down a bit on the left rear. I'm not sure if that's just an optical illusion. Let's see if we can spot anything. Roberto Moreno's keeping an eye on this.
It's difficult to see at the moment, but he certainly has a problem.
He's certainly not happy with the car. Obviously, as he was out on the track, it didn't feel right. And in that situation, in this sort of a race, you don't take any chances. You bring it into the pits.
You have to do that. And Montoya, of course, has had a good stop. Got away cleanly, and look at that
left rear is down, doesn't it?
Yeah, the left rear seems to be punctured. Perhaps a whole set of tyres being changed.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Well, you never just change one tyre. If you're going to change one, it's as quick to change all four. You might as well put a complete set of tyres on there. Already run these tyres, but now a problem with the right rear.
Yeah, the right rears, they've got a trouble. They can't get the right... Now, finally, the wheel nut comes off, and eventually they get the new tyre on.
This is costing valuable time. He will lose at least a couple of laps, I think, to the leaders. By the time he's back underway, it's Dave Popolart's there on that right rear corner. He had a problem with that wheel. Don't know what it was. We'll try and find out for you. Meanwhile, Juan Montoya is back out on the track, and Christian Fittipaldi has not... Yeah, he's just been into the pits now and was leader last time around. And Max Papis now has taken up the lead of this race with 75 laps in the books.
Wow, dramatic stuff indeed. Michael Andretti's in the pit lane. As we know, he's out.
Well,
let's hear from him.
It has to do with the rear brakes. We'll try to confirm. Did the brake burn through the brake lining, Michael?
Yeah, from what I understand, the rear brake line's burnt from something, I don't know what. So it's a bummer. You know, the Kmart Texas car was running great. Ford engine was the most powerful engine out there, so you know we had the combination today.
Had you run into any difficulties or anything that would give you concern for the rest of this race? Because it looked like it was just going so well.
It was going good. We were a little loose in traffic, but we were going to make the adjustments. It wasn't bad. You know, it was going to be that a little here, a little there, and I think we would have really been gone, you know. So it's just truly disappointing. I feel bad for the whole Kmart Texaco team.
And with it go any hopes of getting that third place finish in the championship points.
So Michael Andretti out of this race. Max Papis is our race leader now. Paul Tracy second. Juan Montoya is third. Christian Fittipaldi now into fourth place ahead of Helio Castroneves and Adrian Fernandez. And Dario Franchitti is some 3 laps down as a result of that problem that he had. Disaster for Franchitti. Can he get it back? There's a long way to go in this race. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage from Fontana in California. Race leader Max Papis, 81 laps completed by him. He has a 2.4 second advantage over Paul Tracy. Juan Montoya runs in third place and suddenly looks good for the championship because Dario Franchitti had a disastrous stop a few moments ago. There is Franchitti. He's not quite 3 laps down. We thought he was 3 laps down. Well, I thought he was. He's not actually. He's 2 laps down. But they just didn't get the rear wheel seated properly on the hub. That was the story, apparently. So a mistake in that pit stop that has cost him a couple of laps.
Now, at this stage in the race, Dario Franchitti has to be very, very careful indeed. They've made one mistake in the pits. He has to be careful now not to let that affect his concentration. He has to just get on with the job, run the same sort of pace, whatever pace he can run. He doesn't want to push it too hard and just let the race come back to him. He can't really influence the race at this stage because he is too far back. He just has to be patient and let the race, as I say, come back to him.
And what that means in many ways is hoping that strategy can play its part. Perhaps a caution period coming out at the right time would just allow him to get back onto the lead lap. That's the key.
Yeah, he is 2 laps down, and you might think that's an insurmountable disadvantage. It really isn't. We saw at Michigan in July, Tony Kanaan came back from 1 lap down, and he won the race. And that's far from unprecedented in this series. We've seen people in the past come back from 2 laps down, or even more, in fact, and win the race. But he doesn't necessarily, of course, have to win the race.
What you do in those situations is you do the opposite to the leaders, and you're hoping that when the yellow comes, the leaders stop on the pits. You don't have to, and so you just try to do a strategy different to the leaders.
Well, let's watch that as this race develops. 166 laps still to go here. 84 laps have been completed. Max Papis, the man who came so close to winning at Michigan, is up front once again now. We're watching Maurizio Gugelmin once again running in 7th place, and the Pac West team having a good record on these kind of tracks, on the super speedways and in 500-mile races as well. Maurizio himself's had some good finishes on this racetrack and lying in a good solid 7th place. That's quite comfortable at the moment. He'll be happy about that and running at a consistent pace. Jimmy Vasser runs behind him, and we've got an accident for Dennis Vitolo coming into the pits by the looks of things.
Yes, not slightly unconventional approach to the pit lane there. Not only did he go backwards, but he also got a fire there on the back of the car as well. So not good news all around for Dennis Vitolo. The good news is, if there is any, he didn't hit anything.
Oh, that's right. Well, the caution has been thrown. The yellow flag is out, and the marshal's rushing down there with a bucket of water, but another marshal's already there with an extinguisher.
And again, that is, I think, good news for Dario Franchitti. I think he was, there he is, spinning down. He was trying to make a pit stop, and it's pretty tricky on this type of racetrack. As Roberto will say in all seriousness, you come off the banking there onto the apron where the road flattens out off the banking, and it is not very easy, is it, Roberto? It is very easy to make that mistake.
What he most likely has is an oil leak. You see all that fire is probably coming from some oil, and then he's spun probably on his own oil.
But even so, it is quite easy to make that mistake.
Indeed.
Well, Max Papis is our race leader. 86 laps have been completed. We're watching on board with Adrian Fernandez, just relaxing that right hand a little bit. So remember, that was the hand that he broke earlier on this season and ran with a cast on that arm for a while. Just relaxing the right hand, taking the advantage of a caution period here to just settle down a little bit, take some deep breaths, relax the hands on the steering wheel, which are clenched pretty tightly when you're doing 240, 250 miles an hour.
Yeah, you're hanging on for grim death around this sort of place. It really is a fairly daunting experience. And of course, this caution was very good news for Dario Franchitti. As I said, he was running ahead of the race leader and only by 100 yards or so on the racetrack when the yellow came out. So as the pace car picks up the race leader, Dario Franchitti then is able to go all the way around the pack and rejoin at the back of the line. So effectively there, he has gained 3/4 of a lap in one fell swoop. And another couple of instances of that situation, and he can certainly be back in contention for a very good placing this weekend.
Yes, but he may well need it, because Montoya running in 3rd position at the moment, looking good in terms of the championship. But a long way to go in this race, still not at half distance yet. We're about 1/3 distance completed, that's all. It seems to be a long race. It is a long race, and there's plenty more to come in this one before it's all done. Helio Castroneves, as you mentioned earlier, Jeremy, lost some time in the pit stops, but running in a good 5th place at the moment, just ahead of Adrian Fernandez, as we take a look at the overhead view above this 2-mile California Speedway. The packed grandstands on the right-hand side of the shot there, and everybody enjoying an absolutely gloriously sunny day. Gorgeous conditions, no breeze really, or just a tiny breeze, none of the strong winds that we saw in qualifying, which was affecting a lot of the cars. Today, really just about perfect conditions for the race. Looking down over the speedway then as Papis leads on another caution period here in the season finale of the Fedex Championship Series. Just coming into the pits, a few cars. Jimmy Vasser, interestingly, has decided to come into the pits. Now, Jimmy was running in 9th place, and he has come into the pits on this caution period. Just seeing if anybody else has taken advantage of it. Nobody else yet, but he has made his stop, back out again. We may see Frank Kitty come into the pits perhaps on the next lap. Of course, he's more than a lap down. Cars on the lead lap are allowed to come in first, and then cars a lap down or more come in the next time around.
That's true, and there's only been, Dario Franchitti made his last pit stop on lap 71. We ran up until lap 85 before the caution came out. So he ran 14 laps under green flag conditions, and this is a 2-mile track around here. You're probably going to get a little bit better than 2 miles a gallon in race situation. So he's used up 14 gallons, let's say. That's well over 1/3 of a tank, certainly, of fuel. So he might as well come in, I would suggest, and top it up, and then hope that you get another caution at the right time. And if the leaders then come in to make a pit stop and you stay out, and then there's another caution period, then he will make up again another lap. So that's the sort of strategy that Barry Green and his crew will be working on as this long race progresses.
Yes, and now he has to make his way all the way to the end of the pit lane. Apparently this set of tyres, which went on, of course, in a bit of a panic because he made a second stop, they hadn't been pressured correctly. They hadn't been set perfectly for going out on track. So in fact, he's ended up out there on tyres that have not been correctly pressured, and on an oval track, Roberto, tyre pressures are absolutely critical, down to half a pound, aren't they?
Indeed, and in every track actually, you can change the balance of the car now with tyre pressures. In the race I did in Chicago this year, I got a car that was complete oversteer at the beginning of the race to a very good handling car towards the end, just by changing tyre pressures.
It's amazing just how sensitive these cars can be.
Yes, it's like go-karts used to be. You know, half a pound or a pound, it can change the whole setup.
Okay, well, we're getting ready to go green once again. Max Papis leads the field around as we have one more lap under caution period before we go green flag.
And again, let's go back to July and the US 500 at Michigan Speedway. Max Papis led 144 laps of that race, 142 perhaps it was, and then ran out of fuel half a lap from the end. And again, another dominating show so far, it seems, from Max Papis, looking very, very strong.
We are looking at Adrian Fernandez's stats. He's up to 6th place in this race, and on the 500 milers he's had 1 pole, his best finish a 3rd place. Of course, he's had a win this year already. That was at Motegi earlier on this season, and a good result for him on that occasion, but had to sit out a number of races this year as well because of the injured hand he suffered at Detroit. Into the pits again, Brian Herter, and it really does look as though his last outing for Team Rahal is not going to be covered in glory, sadly. Herter's been having some fuel injection problems throughout the course of this race so far. Alonso Jr., meanwhile, he's running in a competitive 8th place in his final outing for Penske. It's also the last run for Goodyear tyres, we now know, as they are also pulling out of the Champ Car Series. But let's concentrate now on the restart as Max Papis leads them away. The green flag waves, and here they come out of turn number 4 across the line. Papis followed by Tracy. Look at Kanan, who's a lap down, or a couple of laps down, in fact, is he? Let's see, 1 lap down. He's right in that little mix as well, the winner of Michigan, and determined to try and get back onto the lead lap if he can. There he is, just being chased by Juan Montoya.
Yeah, a lot of lap traffic in there amongst the race leaders there, and as you say, Tony Kanani, he's gone a lap down in the early stages, and he knows how important it is to be patient at this stage in the race. They need obviously to improve that car a little bit. It is not able to run at the standard of the race leaders, but maybe a couple of little changes on that last pit stop, and maybe now he can run with the leaders and perhaps get that lap back. Although, as I say that, he is actually passed by Juan Montoya going into turn 1, but that's fine if he can tuck in behind Montoya. Montoya, I'm sure he'll be pretty happy.
Yes, that's right. That would give him a good run throughout this race. Behind them, you can see Raul Bozell. He's some 2 laps down now in the Eagle chassis, and then some movement going on around behind him. Though I think that was Christian Fittipaldi, who's running in 5th place. Teammate, of course, to Michael Andretti, who led the early part of this race so well. He reckoned, Michael Andretti, that they have the strongest engine out there in the Ford Cosworth XD. Well, we've got a Ford engine up front at the moment in the hands of Max Papis. Then it's 2 Hondas, then the Mercedes, then a couple of Fords, another Mercedes and another Honda. First of the Toyota runners is Robbie Gordon, running down in 14th position, although they did take pole position yesterday.
And he is a lap down, and I think Christian Fittipaldi might be in a spot of bother. I just saw as he came past the start-finish line that time, he was being overtaken by Helio Castro-Neves, who now, after that poor pit stop, is back up into 4th position, and also Adrian Fernandez went past Christian Fittipaldi as well, so we will keep our eyes on Christian's car.
Yes, there is that battle. There's Christian Fittipaldi, and looks as though that Dario Franchitti is battling with him at the moment, but remember that Dario Franchitti is a couple of laps down and can't quite get away around Christian at that point, so settles in behind him once again. There's Fittipaldi just going past Jourdain. Jourdain also a lap down. So Christian Fittipaldi running in 7th place. Jimmy Vasser running in 8th. Alonso Jr. 9th. Tony Kanaan in 10th place. Then PJ Jones in 11th. By the way, PJ Jones back in this weekend. Jan Magnussen has been running the Vistion car recently, but it is PJ Jones back in for this final oval race of the season, and still the drive there to be sorted out for the year 2000. A number of drivers, including yourself, Roberto, I think I gather up for the drive there at Patrick Racing.
I'll stay quiet at this point.
All right. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll find out in the not-too-distant future exactly what's going to happen there, as Papis continues to lead this race. 96 laps have been completed. And Christian Fittipaldi reporting that he hit a bit of a slippery patch on the track, which is interesting. There's PJ Jones battling with Maurizio Gugelmin. Gugelmin running in 6th place. PJ Jones running down in 11th place, a lap down. And Gugelmin finding it a little tricky to get around PJ at the moment.
And the race leader, Max Papis, 228 miles an hour last time around. And the gap to Paul Tracy, actually grown out a little bit on the last couple of laps, about 3 or 4 tenths of a second each of the last 2 laps now. So 2.7 seconds between Max Papis and Paul Tracy. And there is PJ Jones. As I say, it shows him there 1 lap down, that is correct. And he is chasing Tony Kanaan there for that. That is a battle for position between Kanaan and PJ Jones.
There's our race leader then, Max Papis, the man who was so impressive at the Michigan 500, but yet to win a race. He had his best ever finish last time in Surfers Paradise in Australia, when he finished 2nd to Dario Franchitti. And he was asked the other day, how come you're so good on the ovals? Well, he said, well, actually I've had better results on the road courses and street courses than on the ovals. But he does love these oval tracks. He's really taken them to heart. He loves American motorsport in all its forms. American sports car racing really restarted his career, and then from the American sports car racing he moved into Champ Cars a few years ago, responsible for a lot of the development work done by Toyota over the years. So he said yesterday that that pole position that Scott Pruitt earned, he felt he really had a part to play in that with his couple of years working with the engineers from Toyota. But Papis up front, look at this, Helio Castro-Neves just going past Kanaan, not a battle for position, but Castro-Neves again running extremely quickly and looking very confident out there. Now, let's just see as he accelerates away from Kanaan. There's reports there might be a bit of a spray from the back of Kanaan's car from Helio Castro-Neves, but we'll try to see if we can find out any more about that.
And apparently Carl Hogan informs the kart officials it's an oil transfer spray. I'm sure he knows exactly what he's talking about there, and trying to make sure that Helio Castro-Neves does not get a black flag. He doesn't need that at this stage in the proceedings.
Roberto, you were just saying about the
oil transfer is something you do inside of your own racing car.
Right. For
something I can't talk too much about it, but it's something that Helio does inside of his racing car.
Interesting.
Yeah. To affect the balance of the car, presumably as the weight transfer burns off the fuel and
and all sorts of interesting reasons there would be to move weight around inside the car. Of course, one of the controls they have in the car is a weight jacker button, and as the fuel load burns down, the weight distribution of the car is altered, and that will affect the balance of the racing car, and the weight jacker will enable them to get that car back into balance with a mechanical grip of the car. Is that right, Roberto?
Indeed, we play a lot with that in the car, with weight jackers and things. Some teams out there don't even use them because their car handles so well throughout the race. Sometimes we don't even touch them, even if we have them, when the car handles so well, which I believe was the case with Michael today. And but whenever we need, it's there if we ever need it.
So Papis leads them around. 102 laps completed, 148 still to go. And Tracy running in a competitive second place, some 3 seconds behind. Montoya is in third. Helio Castroneves is fourth. Fernandez fifth. Guterman sixth. Fittipaldi seventh, with Vassar, Alonso Jr., Canaan and Jones behind. Back to Eurosport's coverage from Fontana, the battle between Montoya and Franchitti for the 1999 Fedex Championship Series, and Montoya with the big advantage at the moment, running in third place. Franchitti down in 15th position, some 2 laps behind after various problems in the early part of the race. Max Papis is the race leader, 107 laps in the books, and maintaining a just under 4-second lead over Paul Tracy. Let's just take a look at those positions. Papis, Tracy, Montoya, that's our top 3. Castroneves has been running extremely quickly all afternoon. He's ahead of Fernandez and Maurizio Guterman, who's also putting in a strong run today. Christian Fittipaldi runs 7th, then Jimmy Vassar, Al Unser Jr., Tony Kanaan, PJ Jones, and in the final points scoring position at the moment is Gilles de Ferran. Then we see Jourdain, Gordon and Franchitti down there in 15th place, 2 laps behind, but just hoping that the strategy works his way, that they can work the yellows a little bit and get himself back in contention here.
He has passed the eagle of Raul Bozell. That was 4th position 4 or 5 laps ago, so he has moved up 1 position, and for certain I think there's going to be some attrition before the end of this race, so he should be able to get up into the top 10 or 12 fairly easily. But he's going to as you say, Ben, play some interesting strategies and have things fall his way. He just needs a little bit of good fortune at this stage to get back into contention to really where he needs to be. He'll certainly feel more comfortable if he's back up amongst the top 10 or 12. And you know, as competitive as this series is, as I said before, it's going to be tough to do. So he's going to need some bit of good fortune on his side to help him along the way.
Yes, he is. There's no doubt about that. There's a story that the car of Castroneves is running a little bit rough, and it sounds as though he may be in trouble. Castroneves is slowing. Car number 9, the Hogan machine, and what a shame this would be. He's run so well here this afternoon, worked his way up from 20th on the grid to be running in 4th position. He's been overtaking everyone. Look at the smoke coming from the back of that car. It's all over for Helio Castroneves.
Yeah, that's a certain terminal oil transfer, and I think what they were talking about when Carl was, I wasn't really paying attention when Carl was talking about that oil transfer. There's, you know, as these cars run, particularly in a 500-mile race, they will use up some oil. And I believe many of the teams, or most of the engine manufacturers, now have a sort of reserve oil tank, and they can actually transfer some oil across from that reserve tank into the main oil tank. And I think that's used up rather too much oil, has that Mercedes-Benz engine of Helio Castroneves, and I think perhaps there was none left in the reserve tank, and that has probably run some bearings perhaps, and it looks like certainly the end of Helio Castroneves' race, and there will now be another round of pit stops, and this does not incidentally fall at a good time for Dario Franchitti. There certainly is no opportunity for him really to make up any ground this time around, and once the pits are open, and that will be when all the cars are packed up, as they say, when they've closed up behind the pace car, which is now making its way out onto the track. Once the cars have taken up position behind the pace car, then the pits will be opened, and those cars on the lead lap initially will be able to come in and make their pit stop, and then, as Ben said earlier on, the next time around, those cars 1 lap or more down can make their pit stops, and that of course is when Dario Franchitti will be able to come onto pit lane.
If he decides to. Do you think he will come in at this point? Yes?
Yeah, he has to come in now. He has to make sure that he has enough fuel to take advantage of whatever situation may occur over the next 15, 20 laps or so.
So Franchitti hoping that things fall in his favour. Papis is our race leader. There is Helio Castroneves getting out of the car and giving his crew a round of applause. That's really nice to see, isn't it? What a gentleman he is. He really is such a nice guy, and the crew are completely behind him. Devastated that they won't be all working together next year. The news coming through just at the end of last week that Carl Hogan regrettably shutting the team down. And look at that, isn't that great fun to see? Helio Castroneves really is a star in the paddock here, and getting the handshake from Big Carl at the end of their relationship together.
Yeah, great shame. And there's Ben Bolby there from Lola Cars as well, the chief designer on the left-hand side. He gets a shake from Helio Castroneves, and there is his race engineer, Casper van der Schoot, a young Dutchman who has really made a great name for himself in this series as a race engineer the last year or two, and particularly this time around with Helio Castroneves. And great to see. He's a super popular guy with everybody in the paddock here. And as I say, I'm sure he will find a ride next year, but a real shock to hear that Carl Hogan is closing down that operation. And as I say, he only made the announcement to everybody in the team on Friday afternoon, and as of Monday that team is out of business, and all those guys will be looking for work, and there's a lot of work around at the moment. Actually, there's a lot of mechanics. A lot of the teams are looking for very good mechanics, and there's a lot of extremely good mechanics on that Hogan Racing team. But you know, a lot of Carl's own money from his Hogan Motor Leasing trucking company going into that race team, and his fellow directors, or in actual fact his sons, have decided that there's an inordinate amount of outflow of cash there, and they say no more, Dad, sorry. And poor old Carl took that news very, very badly indeed, and it's a great shame for him, and of course as everybody on that crew.
Oh, look at this, Jeremy, look at this.
What's
coming
that?
into the pits, that's Papis. That was Papis coming into pit lane. He nearly did a Vitolo coming into the pits there, almost lost control of the car, and amazingly got it back together, but of course that's lost him a load of places in the queue coming into the pits.
That's a little bit embarrassing, particularly on the yellow. I did say earlier on, and Roberto didn't really seem to follow up on that, but it is difficult when you come off the banking, particularly with these carbon brakes. The carbon brakes get up to temperature instantly. They do use carbon brakes. Let's get through these pit stops first, and I'll come back to that. But look, here are the three leaders onto pit lane, and service is being done.
Yes, try and listen out to any radio communication that we can. As we've got Papis at the top. Looks like this could be a chance for Montoya to take the lead of the race, but across the blend line, and it's Tracy who takes over the advantage. Paul Tracy, what a quick stop, 12.4 seconds for the crew that won the Craftsman Pit Crew Challenge on Thursday. They've done it again. They are turning Paul Tracy around so quickly, and they've got him back out in front of Montoya, with Papis dropping back down the order as a result of virtually spinning coming into the pits. It's now Paul Tracy who leads them out. Vassar has popped up into second, and I believe that Montoya is back there in third place now.
Vassar, that's amazing, because he was way back in seventh as he came onto pit lane, so all sorts of shuffling going on there.
Well, perhaps some of the others got slowed down by Papis nearly spinning coming into the pit lane. He is dropped back. It's now Tracy up front.
So, a rookie record, 7 victories this season for Juan Pablo Montoya, beating Nigel Mansell's record.
Great job. I'll see you in victory circle.
A replay there of Max Papis coming into the pits, and you can see how he just kept it off the wall. He must have been just inches away. Let's take another look at this. This was coming into the pits, down off the apron. Now, he got on the power by the looks of things there, hit the brakes up, corrected it, got on the grass. Now look how close he was to the wall here. Yeah. Just avoided it.
Not far away. As I was saying before, though, the cars use, generally speaking, in the Fedex Championship Series, they use steel brakes on these cars. That's for reasons mainly of cost. Now, for the super speedway races, they are actually allowed to use, and therefore do use, carbon fiber brakes. That's discs and rotors. And I think, again, that was coming off that transition there from the banking onto the apron, as they call it, the flat part of the track. And it's very difficult because the cars, of course, are set up to turn left in any case, so the cambers and the toe angles on these cars are not symmetrical, so they are set up to turn left at the best of times. If you just roll the car in a straight line, it'll curve around to the left under its own power. And when you're coming off the banking there and turning left and on the brakes, that accentuates the problems, and that's what caused that problem there for Max Papis. But the reason they use carbon brakes on these fast ovals is that carbon brakes come up to temperature, up to optimum working temperature almost instantly, whereas steel brakes take more time to achieve their full effectiveness. So as you're coming off the bank, in particular under full racing situation, pretty much as soon as you get onto the brake pedal with carbon fiber brakes, the car will slow down. If you were using steel brakes, it would take much longer for that braking effect to take full effect. So that is why we use these carbon brakes. Thank you very much. Well, your turn, Ben.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Well, now we know the full story, indeed, as Paul Tracy continues to lead the cars behind the pace car. 118 laps now completed, still 132 to go. Still a long way to go in this event as Jimmy Vasser and Juan Montoya stay in the battle. There's PJ Jones. He's been in the pits for a new nose cone. He's back into the pit lane again. Now, I don't know whether there's more work required or whether there was still more trouble. Apparently, he made contact with Tony Kanaan in that last round of stops. So they sent him back out. They've now got it up on the jacks again. And they are, I think, just finishing off locating that front nose cone. They perhaps didn't get a chance to put it all, bolt it all on before the cars came around, and they want to try and stay on the lap they're on.
Didn't see that incident, but I wonder whether it was a result of Max spinning away down to the inside there. Nobody else, a sort of concertina effect back down the pack, and those two caught a little bit unawares, and PJ perhaps just running lightly into the back of Tony Kanaan's car and doing some damage to the nose of that car.
So Tracy's up front. He was up front in the latter stages of last year as well, but it all went wrong for him. Now, just to remind you, if you didn't join us in the early part of this race, we saw a horrific accident to Greg Moore. He crashed coming out of turn number 2. Now, we do believe that we are going to hear some more news from the medical representatives here of CART in a few moments' time. The accident occurred early stages of this race. He was on his own. He lost control of the car. The car slammed across the grass, dug in, rolled over, hit the concrete wall on the inside. He was taken off by helicopter to the nearest hospital, the Loma Linda University Medical Center, and we are hoping to hear a little bit more news in a few moments' time as to Greg Moore's condition. So we will let you know as soon as we're ready to hear that news. Meanwhile, the drivers, of course, continuing in this race, this $1 million race, $1 million on the line for the race winner here today. Paul Tracy is that man up front, but Jimmy Vasser, the winner of it last year, second place at the moment. Juan Montoya in third position and doing everything to try and wrap up this title. Now, we, I think, are seeing just the one finger sign as we go around this time. That'll mean one more lap until they go green. I think pace car staying out this time and one finger this time. So, yes, just over a lap before we get this race underway. Looking at the packed grandstands there and the new hospitality boxes. Our commentary box actually in part of that huge area of hospitality boxes mounted on top of the grandstand, giving us a pretty spectacular view around the entire 2-mile oval.
And of the San Gabriel Mountains immediately to our left and the San Bernardino Mountains to the right. Another geography lesson there. But very spectacular scenery here at the eastern end of the Los Angeles Basin here. We're probably about 70 miles from the coastline in actual fact, but pretty when the weather is like this, it really is a fantastic sight.
It is a gorgeous sight. Beautiful weather conditions here today, and it is really ideal conditions for today's race. Let's just concentrate as they begin to gather the cars up together again, because we will see green flag this time around, and Tracy it is who leads them up the back stretch, just weaving around a little bit, get a little bit more heat into those tyres. Behind him, of course, it's Jimmy Vasser, then it's Juan Montoya, and behind him, Adrian Fernandez, Maurizio Guterman, Christian Fittipaldi, and Max Papis.
8 cars on the lead lap as we get ready for the restart.
So here we go then, Paul Tracy really beginning to put the hammer down now, build up the speed, accelerating off turns 3 and 4, using all of that 850 horsepower to whisk him down across the start-finish line.
Montoya has a fantastic jump. He flies past Jimmy Vasser. Can he make a move also on Paul Tracy?
Nearly. He tries to get down the inside of Paul Tracy, and Montoya battling for the lead once again here as they set off with 121 laps in the books, and Tracy keeping an eye on his mirrors, knowing that Montoya is in behind him. Down goes Montoya to the inside into turn 3. A clean pass, no problem at all, as he picked up the slipstream. But now we may see Tracy come back at him. Meanwhile, watch Guterman. Guterman is up into 3rd place, and look at the speed he's going at. Maurizio Guterman now picks up the tow from Paul Tracy. Guterman moving to the outside in the Pac West car. Can't quite get enough momentum there to overtake Tracy for second. But Guterman also making an excellent restart. Vasser, the slow one, because he's been passed by both Guterman and Christian Fittipaldi.
Wow. All sorts of shuffling in the order there. And as you say, Maurizio Guterman absolutely flying. He has this weekend confirmed he will be back with the Pac West team in 2000. That'll be his 5th year with this team. And Bruce McCaw, he held a huge party last night, the World Party, with the Pac West and Mercedes-Benz to watch the Formula 1 race live from Suzuka. There's a huge amount of people. It was great fun. And Bruce McCaw did announce then that Guterman will be back with this team, and he did say that Guterman is really very much a cornerstone of this team. A very likeable man and a very good driver indeed, and he's showing it again this afternoon.
He is, yes, back on the pace. Good to see that. The Pac West team has had an up and down season this year. Of course, Blundell was out of action for quite a long while as a result of a testing accident. Moreno did a good job standing in for him, but they really haven't got back to the heady heights of 1997 when they took several victories that year. And of course, Guterman took his one and only victory that year at the Vancouver race. Pole position here at Fontana that season, the fastest ever lap on a closed racetrack at over 240 miles an hour average. Well, today they're still going pretty quickly. And now look at Guterman under attack from Christian Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi diving down the inside there, using Ford power to get past Guterman's Mercedes-powered Reynard.
And the pace right now, 32.4 last time around. That's not nearly as quick as they were going earlier on. That's about 224 miles an hour. So nothing like the pace that Michael Andretti was setting earlier in this race. Of course, that pace really didn't do Michael much good. He's now out of the running altogether. And up at the front, as you see there, is Juan Montoya. Right behind him, Paul Tracy. And in his 3rd place there is Christian Fittipaldi. And did you see down on the inside was Max Papis?
Yes, Papis, the man who was leading before that last round of pit stops when he nearly crashed coming into the pit lane. Papis was on a charge there, trying to get past Jimmy Vasser. Looked as though he picked up a slipstream. We'll check that in a second, as Fittipaldi now going for 2nd place. Christian Fittipaldi moving into 2nd place ahead of Paul Tracy. So now the order has completely changed around. Montoya leads, Christian Fittipaldi in 2nd place. Paul Tracy back to 3rd. 4th place for Guterman, 5th now for Max Papis. Jimmy Vasser is back into 6th place, and Alonso Jr. still not far away.
And Adrian Fernandez in 8th place at the back of the tail end of the lead lap. He's actually fallen back a little bit. He was running 4th at the restart, fallen now to 8th. Gilles de Ferran, the best of those, 1 lap down in 9th place. And who is in 10th place then?
Dario Franchitti, that's right. But he is still got a lot of work to do here this afternoon. He is a lap down, but every chance. Still some 123 laps to go. We've just gone over the half distance point now, and we seem to have seen so much already in this race. Well, we've got that amount still to go here with Montoya up front. Reliability in a 500-mile race, absolutely crucial. But I don't think there's been a team that's been responsible for more reliable cars over the last 3 or 4 years than Team Target Chip Ganassi Racing. They have the most incredible finishing record generally, and we'll just have to see whether that finishing record holds up here today with Montoya up front, Vasser running in 6th position, as Fittipaldi is now beginning to really apply the pressure to Montoya. Look at this, Fittipaldi now taking a look at getting past Montoya. Doesn't take any risks, though. No point in really making a risky move here, but it looks as though he's got all the speed that Michael Andretti was showing earlier on.
That's right. Anything you can do, Michael, I can do better, says Christian Fittipaldi. He's been a revelation this season, has Christian Fittipaldi, and now, for the first time, really, he is showing his full mettle on an oval track. He's been magnificent this year, scored his first win, of course, at Road America, had several other great runs, a really fine run at Toronto as well, and several more good positions. He really was a championship contender until he broke a bone in his back when he had a crash in testing on the oval at Gateway, and he missed 5 races and has fallen out of the top 5 in the championship. But he wants to get back into the top 5, and now he really is pressuring Juan Montoya.
He is indeed. Look at this, Ford power. Again, as we mentioned, this Cosworth XD engine, which is at the end of its development, but it really is producing the numbers on the super speedway here. And now, again, he's perfectly situated. Montoya checks his mirrors. Fittipaldi not actually sitting in behind enough to get the slipstream there, but I don't think he's worried. He'll take the chance when he gets it given cleanly, but he's not going to do anything silly. He's just happy to sit there in second place until the draft works perfectly. It could be this time as they move across the line. Fittipaldi moves to the outside and heads into the lead in turn 1, and a cheer from the crowd as Fittipaldi goes ahead of Juan Montoya, and that is a great move by the Brazilian, winner of the Road America race this year, and now he's in front in this race, and he's never led a lap in a 500-mile race before, so how about that? Christian Fittipaldi coming through in the lead of this race.
Great to see, and absolutely, look at that, he's pulled out already about 50 yards over Juan Montoya. That really, the advantage of that slipstream that enabled him to go past there, and certainly a great run here from Christian Fittipaldi. His best result on an oval was second at Indianapolis in his rookie season way back in '95. That was with Walker Racing, and on the radio they don't take any hurry. No rush at this stage in the race. Still 118 laps to go.
Yeah, we could just hear Chip Ganassi on the radio there. That's right, and he said, "Don't worry about it. Montoya mustn't panic at this point." Absolutely not. He's in a very strong second place, and Franchitti is down in 10th place. Montoya's looking good at this point in the race, so he must not panic. He must not do anything silly. Papis also on the move. Max is up to 3rd now. He dropped down to 7th after that last pit stop. Disaster when he nearly spun coming into the pit lane, and now he's working his way back up front, up into 3rd place, and now he will be the next man to chase Juan Montoya. Behind Papis, it's Tracy, then Gugelmin, then Vassar, then Alonso Jr. still on the lead lap. Watch out for little Al. He's always a feature in these races. Back up front, Christian Fittipaldi just beginning to pull away a little bit from Juan Montoya. And Franchitti coming into the pits now then. Franchitti into the pits. Is this a scheduled stop? Yes. I think it is.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that he will be due for a pit stop very, very soon. Now, the gamble did not pay off on this occasion. And now, how much time will he lose? Look at him. It looks oh so slow at 50 miles an hour down the pit lane. He has to go all the way down. His crew, the last crew on pit lane, right by pit out. He will lose more than a lap here, and that's the gamble you take from that situation. He was just 1 lap down. He's already now 2 laps down, and it's a question, will he go 3 laps down before he gets out on track? I don't think he will, actually.
There's a problem with that right rear again, and they've dropped it down before they got it off. So this crew really has not got it together here today. It's all going wrong for them, and the disappointment, the frustration of what's going on here for Dario Franchitti, for that crew which has been so strong this year. They've been so consistent all season long, and now when it counts, it's just slipping away from them. But don't forget, if Montoya for any reason doesn't finish this race, Franchitti will still be champion, and there's still 114 laps to go.
Yeah, here comes Dario Franchitti. Now look at the top of the screen. There is Christian Fittipaldi right behind Mark Blundell. So Dario Franchitti has sort of almost a full straightaway lead over Christian Fittipaldi. Lead, I use in inverted commas, but he is not yet up to speed. Now, how quickly can Franchitti get up to speed? Can he maintain that position? At the moment, he is just 2 laps down, does not want to go any more than that.
The positions then, Christian Fittipaldi leading after 136 laps, Montoya 2nd, Max Papis in 3rd, Paul Tracy in 4th, Gugelmin and Vassar right behind. We're back and watching Dario Franchitti at the moment, but his teammate Paul Tracy slowing right down. Paul Tracy, who was right up front and just behind Christian Fittipaldi, and Montoya up front has slowed right down. Reliability problems. Let's listen to the radio, trying to hear what's happening there. Drama indeed as Paul Tracy is coming slowly into pit lane. Trying to listen to the radio. We've got radio communications with him.
It's running on like 5 cylinders.
And you could hear him.
Drop it on the track.
You could hear him saying there, it sounded like it was running on 5 cylinders, and he's made it back to the pit lane. They wondered if he might stop out on track, but he has made it back to pit lane, so it isn't full course caution. It is still green flag racing here, and up there you can see Dario Franchitti is in danger of going another lap down because he's got Christian Fittipaldi right behind him.
Right behind him. And going into turn 1, Christian Fittipaldi made a move to pass Franchitti. Franchitti held him off, but how much longer can he hold him off? He really doesn't even... He can't go 3 laps down. He must be able to... He has to keep this lap somehow. On the 2 laps down, yeah, you can maybe make that up 3. That's asking an awful lot, particularly when you're already halfway through the race. And maybe the smart thing to do might have been had Paul Tracy stop there out on the racetrack and have a full course caution. That's a bit cynical, isn't it? But a bit of a shame. But certainly a great shame for Paul Tracy. Another great run this weekend. He really has done a fabulous job this season. Of course, he had to sit out the first race of the year as a result of a penalty that was incurred on the end of the 98 season. Wally Down about the kart chief had said, no, we don't want you at the first race. That's your penalty for that transgression of the rules. And since then, he has been absolutely magnificent.
Look at this, Papis has moved past Montoya, but now Montoya's coming back at him. Oh, he's down below the wall. Literally, do you see the car over the apron there? And we're just, Montoya almost getting himself into trouble. Chip Ganassi getting on the radio as well. And as he came back at getting into second place, he got 2 wheels down below the white line. Now, you're allowed to do that, but the car got into quite a wiggle there because the transition in angle between the banking and below that white line on the apron is quite severe. That's caused problems before. Andretti had an accident here last year because of it, and Montoya almost got into trouble there. And he's got to be careful because he's up front. He's where he needs to be. Take a look at this, Jeremy. Montoya coming down the inside. Look how he got squeezed down low, and the car snaking around a little bit.
And that dust came up as he gets below the white line there onto the apron there, and that's it's not a very smart move really at this stage in the race. He doesn't need to do that. He's well ahead of Franchitti. It's way too early to start thinking about making vital positions in the game. We've still got over 100 laps to go. That is more than 200 miles to go, and Franchitti has lost that lap to the race leader again. There is the battle for third and fourth, second and third I should say, with Montoya back ahead of Max Papis, but Franchitti now is again 3 laps down.
So Franchitti really with his work cut out here this afternoon. There have been 6 leaders in this race, 10 changes of lead so far, 5 caution periods.